Welcome back to Revise and Resubmit, and welcome to another weekend book review. I'm Pavlov.
And I'm Nikita.
Today we're going to explore Bill Gates' autobiography, Source Code.
It's really fascinating.
From a curious kid in Seattle to the mastermind behind Microsoft. I think we've got some pretty interesting stuff to unpack here. What do you think?
I think it's a story that really shows how, normal childhood experiences can end up shaping really extraordinary destiny.
Exactly. And, it all starts with his family. Did you know that he's actually the third Bill Gates?
Oh, wow.
In his family?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's wild, right?
Yeah. They called him Trey, which is interesting because it kind of has these extra connotations beyond just meaning three, right? So in card games, Trey often refers to the 3 card, and games, especially card games, were a big part of his upbringing.
That's right. And, his maternal grandmother, Gammy, she was quite the card shark. He describes her as this really devout Christian scientist, but also incredibly strategic and competitive, especially when it came to cards.
Yeah.
She really had that.
Like she knew how to play.
Oh, yeah.
She knew how to play to win.
Yeah.
And Gates credits those games with Gami as his early training ground in strategic thinking.
Totally.
So he couldn't beat her at first, but the fact that he kept getting challenged like that really fostered that
problem solving.
Love for problem solving.
Totally.
That would later define his approach to business.
I love it. It makes you wonder if his parents, knew they were raising a future tech titan while he was just...
Well, he's just a little kid.
Learning how to play bridge with his grandmother.
Yeah, totally.
Amazing, right.
Right. But even beyond games, Gates's childhood was full of these hints of this unique personality.
Right.
So he's described as this precocious kid who just didn't fit in with this, expectations
of conformity.
He argued with his parents... questioned rules and just had this really intense curiosity that drove him to just explore and learn independently.
Sounds like it kept his parents on their toes.
Yeah. For sure.
It's interesting. He even had a stint with a therapist.
He did.
Because of it.
Yeah.
Because
it was so...
He's so different.
Yeah, a little bit rebellious.
Right.
And interestingly enough, the therapist advised his parents to give him more freedom.
Wow.
So to kind of loosen the reins and let his natural curiosity just flourish.
That's interesting. I wonder how his parents felt about that.
Well, it must have been a tough pill to swallow, especially in that era, right? I mean, they were successful professionals who probably expected...
The more traditional path
for their son, right?
Okay.
They probably hoped for a roadmap to get him on track, not advice that seemed like stepping back.
Wait, just let him.
Yeah, just let him be.
Just let him figure it out.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's so interesting.
But it seems like, in hindsight, that kind of unconventional approach might...
just exactly what young Bill needed.
I love it. It's like they accidentally stumbled upon this perfect recipe for nurturing a future innovator.
Totally.
Just by giving him space.
And
freedom to explore, huh?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And this leads us to another important part of Gates' story, his time at Lakeside School.
Okay.
And this was where he first encountered a computer.
Okay.
A teletype terminal connected to a time-shared system, no less.
Wow.
And remember, this was the late 1960s.
Yeah.
A time when computers were these massive, expensive machines.
Right.
Mostly found in universities and research labs.
So different from how we think of computers today.
Right. I mean, imagine a kid today being fascinated by a simple terminal, right?
I know. It's mind-boggling.
But for Gates,
it
was like a revelation.
Yeah.
It opened up this whole new world of possibilities. And he was hooked.
He quickly formed a programming group with his classmates, including Paul Allen.
Right.
And they just became completely engrossed in this new world.
I mean, talk about dedication. I read that they were so eager to learn and experiment that they would actually go dumpster diving.
Really?
For source code.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine?
That's amazing.
That's crazy.
It wasn't just about the code itself, though.
Right.
They were really fascinated by the power of software.
Yeah.
This ability to control these complex machines with just lines of code.
It's powerful.
Yeah, they saw this potential for computers to solve problems.
Yeah.
Not just as sophisticated calculators, but as tools that could automate tasks, analyze data, and even create new forms of entertainment.
Right. And they put that belief into action early on.
They did.
Attempting these really ambitious projects like automating the school's scheduling system.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Right.
These are teenagers.
They were already thinking about using computers to solve real-world problems.
That's incredible.
Even as teenagers, which is...
It seems like even in those early days, he had this just innate understanding of systems, of how things connect and interact.
Absolutely. And this was further fueled by his close friendship with another Lakeside student, Kent Evans.
Yeah.
They were like kindred spirits, both brilliant and really passionate about programming.
And Gates considered Kent his best friend.
He did.
And his intellectual equal, someone who challenged him.
Yeah.
And pushed him to think bigger.
They collaborated on tons of projects, feeding off each other's energy and ambition.
Yeah. It's a good reminder of how crucial those early relationships can be.
Right.
How having someone
who inspires you.
Yeah, to inspire you.
And pushes you.
To push you.
Can really make all the difference.
Can make all the difference, right?
Yeah.
But sadly, their partnership was cut tragically short. Kent died in a mountain climbing accident.
Yeah.
While they were still teenagers.
A really tragic accident.
Devastating.
Devastating loss for Gates.
Yeah.
One that really shaped
his outlook on life.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, especially considering how much they could have achieved together.
Right.
But you can really sense the impact of this loss throughout the book.
Yeah. It
seems to have fueled Gates' drive even further, pushing him to make the most of his time and to really pursue his passions with this incredible intensity.
Yeah. It's a real reminder that even the most successful individuals are shaped by both triumphs and tragedies, by those relationships they form,
right,
and the losses they endure.
Absolutely, yeah.
It makes you really think about the people in your own life who have challenged and inspired you and the impact they've had on your own path.
It's something to ponder as we continue exploring Gates' journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really fascinating.
Yeah. So it's incredible to think that even after going through such a profound loss, he manages to channel his grief into his work and pours himself even deeper into this world of coding. He graduates from Lakeside. He heads off to Harvard. What happens next? Did he just dive straight into computer science?
Well, not quite. He actually enrolled in Math 55, which is known as one of the toughest math courses in the country. It's like this breeding ground for future mathematicians and physicists.
I can't even imagine being in that classroom.
It was incredibly demanding. Like, problem sets could take days to solve.
Oh, wow.
And Gates describes it as incredibly stimulating.
Right.
But there was this, nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right.
What do you think was missing for him? Even though he was clearly succeeding in this very challenging environment.
Well, even though he was excelling at math, Gates realized that there were others who were even more naturally gifted than him. And he started to miss the tangible aspect of creating something, that hands-on element that coding provided, that desire to build, to see his ideas come to life in this concrete way that drew him back to the computer lab.
So even while he's surrounded by all these brilliant mathematical minds, it was that allure of building and creating that
pulled him back in. Exactly.
It's interesting.
Yeah, and this leads us to another really key moment, the arrival of the Altair 8800.
Oh.
The first commercially successful personal computer.
Wow.
I mean, this was a game changer. And Gates and Allen, they recognized its significance right away.
I can only imagine their minds racing, seeing this machine, and just envisioning this future where computers weren't just stuck in labs and universities.
Their vision was really revolutionary, a computer in every home.
Wow.
A world where software would be just as crucial as the hardware itself.
I mean, that's huge.
It was audacious, especially at a time when most people couldn't even fathom such a concept.
Right. It must have taken so much conviction to pursue that vision, especially when the technology was still so primitive.
But they knew the Altair needed software to really reach its full potential, and they were determined to be the ones to provide it.
I love that.
And they set this almost impossible deadline.
Okay.
Just a few weeks to write a version of the basic programming language for the Altair.
Oh my gosh. Talk about pressure, right?
I know. They must have been running on pure adrenaline and caffeine at that point.
Gates was basically living in the computer lab. All-nighters, even roped in a classmate to help.
Wow.
But then they hit this major obstacle. They realized they needed to incorporate floating point math into their basic interpreter.
Oh no.
A really complex task that could have completely derailed their whole timeline.
It's amazing to me how sometimes the most groundbreaking innovations come from these moments of intense pressure and last-minute scrambling.
Absolutely. And in a stroke of luck, another student overhears their dilemma and offers a solution. He had already written the code they desperately needed. It was a total serendipitous encounter.
Talk about being in the right place at the right time. I know, right? So they managed to finish their basic interpreter just in time. They fly out to Albuquerque.
Oh, wow.
To demo it for MIites, the company that made the Altair.
This is like a scene straight out of a movie.
It is.
And I'm guessing this is where things really start to take off for them.
You could say that, but it wasn't all smooth sailing from there.
Okay.
You know, the Altair itself was still pretty temperamental, prone to crashes and glitches. And to top it off, Gates was facing a disciplinary hearing at Harvard for using the university's computer for a commercial project.
So he's caught between this incredible opportunity and the potential fallout from, messing up his academic future.
Right.
It's been a really tough decision.
It was a crossroads, but he takes a leap of faith. He leaves Harvard without graduating.
Wow.
To dedicate himself fully to his new software company, Microsoft.
That's incredible.
It was risky, especially considering what his parents might think.
Right. They had always encouraged his passions, but I'm sure they hoped he'd finish his degree.
They probably did.
It's a really powerful reminder that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs require us to defy expectations and embrace uncertainty.
And for Gates, that risk paid off. He saw an opportunity and he seized it.
Yeah.
Setting the stage for this remarkable journey that was about to unfold.
And now he's not just this brilliant coder anymore. He's stepping into the world of business.
Right, a whole different ball game.
A world with its own set of challenges and complexities, right?
Absolutely. And he learned pretty quickly that writing code was only one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
He had to figure out how to navigate contract disputes, manage a growing team, and convince people, a skeptical market, that software was a product worth paying for.
Yeah, that must have been quite a learning curve for someone who was so deeply immersed in the technical side of things.
It was a steep learning curve, but he adapted quickly, learning to negotiate, to delegate, and to build a sustainable business model.
Were there any particular instances where these new skills were really put to the test?
Yeah, there's a great anecdote about his encounter with John Roach, the CEO of Tandy Corporation. Roach was interested in licensing Microsoft's BASIC for their Radio Shack computers.
Okay, so this is a huge opportunity for Microsoft to expand their reach. I bet Gates was super prepared for that meeting.
He was. He went in with this detailed pitch, confidently named his price, $50,000.
Okay.
But Roach's response was just horseshit.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine?
I would just...
Yeah, it was brutal.
I can only imagine how deflating that must have been for Gates after all that preparation.
It was a harsh lesson in the realities of business negotiations, right?
Yeah.
It forced Gates to rethink his approach and to understand that securing a deal often involved more than just presenting a technically sound solution.
Right. He had to learn to play the game, so to speak.
Exactly. And he eventually secured the deal, but it wasn't without a fight. This whole experience really showed him how important it was to be tough, assertive, and willing to stand his ground even when facing these seasoned business executives.
So we're seeing this whole new dimension of his personality emerge, the shrewd negotiator.
Right, exactly.
But alongside that, we also get these glimpses of his less flattering traits.
Yeah, that's true.
His intensity and drive, while crucial to his success, could also manifest in ways that were
not so ideal.
Not so ideal, right.
He was known to be demanding, impatient, and even confrontational at times.
Are there any specific instances where this intensity kind of boiled over?
One striking example is his clash with Ed Roberts, the founder of MIT's, over these faulty memory boards.
Right, this is the same Ed Roberts who gave Microsoft their big break, right?
Yeah, but their relationship had soured a bit since those early days.
Okay.
Roberts was under pressure from investors and was really reluctant to halt the sale of these faulty boards, even though Gates was saying it was the right thing to do for the product's quality.
Right, so it's this classic case of short-term profits versus long-term vision.
Exactly, and Gates wasn't afraid to push back. He argued vehemently that they couldn't compromise their standards.
That must have taken a lot of courage, especially considering how dependent they were on MITs at the time.
It did. But Gates's unwavering commitment to building great products ultimately prevailed.
Wow.
It's a good reminder that success often requires making tough choices and standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable.
Right. It's such a fascinating dichotomy.
Right.
This blend of brilliance, ambition, and at times this like hard-nosed approach to getting things done.
It's a combination that, while not always pretty, was undeniably effective in pushing both Gates and Microsoft forward. But as we dig deeper, we'll see how this same intensity sometimes led to conflicts and challenges down the road.
So we've got this like young, ambitious Bill Gates.
Yeah. And
he's navigating this, kind of treacherous world of the tech industry, which is just kind of getting going.
It's a wild time.
And Microsoft is growing, but, they're still pretty heavily reliant on Emites.
Right.
Which is starting to show some cracks.
Exactly. And Emites founder Ed Roberts, he was facing burnout. And the company was eventually bought by this bigger firm called PerTech.
Oh, okay.
And this raised some serious concerns for Gates.
I mean, yeah, it's like their lifeline is suddenly in jeopardy.
In jeopardy.
What did this mean for Microsoft?
It was a very precarious situation. Yeah. They were still owed a bunch of money in royalties from Emites.
Right.
Money they desperately needed to stay afloat.
Right.
So Gates.
Being Gates.
Yeah.
I bet he didn't just, send a politely worded email.
No, he did not.
What did he do?
He directly confronted Ed Roberts.
Wow.
Demanding those royalties and even threatening legal action if necessary.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, it was intense.
That's a really bold move for a company that's, still pretty small.
Right.
Going up against this bigger established company.
Right.
I mean,
it was high stakes.
Yeah. What happened?
It was a tense standoff, for sure. But they eventually reached an agreement.
Okay.
But this whole ordeal was a real wake-up call for Gates.
In what way?
It really highlighted how risky it was to rely so heavily on just one partner.
Right. It's like, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. It became clear that they couldn't afford to do that anymore.
Right.
And this realization actually leads to another big decision.
Okay.
The move from Albuquerque back to their roots in Seattle.
It seems fitting in a way.
Yeah.
That they'd go back to where it all began.
Yeah.
I mean, was there any particular reason beyond just, trying to get more clients or...
Well, Seattle was starting to emerge as this hub for technology and innovation.
Right.
And plus, being closer to Gates' family,
right,
offered a strong support system, something he probably really needed after losing Kent.
Right, and just the intense pressure of building a company.
Absolutely.
It's a good reminder that even the most driven people need that solid foundation.
They need a place to belong.
To belong, to feel supported, to really thrive.
For sure. And this move to Seattle really marks the beginning of a new chapter for Microsoft. They were still a relatively small company.
Right.
But they weren't tied to the fate of just one partner anymore.
They were free.
They were free to chart their own course.
Yeah. But, I mean, they're still a long way from the tech giant.
Oh, yeah.
We know today.
For sure.
How did they bridge that gap?
Well, Gates stayed really focused on building exceptional products, hiring the best people, and really aggressively expanding into new markets.
He was just relentless.
He was relentless.
In his pursuit of excellence.
Pushing himself and everyone around him to the limit.
As we talked about earlier, that intensity could also be a source of friction.
It definitely could.
As the company grew.
Right, because as Microsoft expanded, Gates realized he couldn't do it all himself anymore.
Right, he needed help.
He had to learn to delegate.
Yeah.
Trust his team and build this more solid leadership structure.
Right, I imagine that transition.
It was tough.
From being so hands-on to being this more, strategic leader must have been hard.
It was a big shift for him. He was used to being involved in every little detail.
Right.
And letting go of some of that control was a challenge.
Yeah.
But he knew it was necessary for the company to keep growing.
Right.
So he brought in Steve Ballmer.
Oh.
A friend from Harvard with a really sharp business mind.
Okay, so someone to complement his skills.
Exactly.
I like that.
And Ballmer coming in allowed Gates to kind of step back and focus on the bigger picture.
Right, so setting the vision.
Right, identifying new opportunities and creating this culture of innovation within the company.
Okay, so with a strong team and a clear vision, Microsoft starts to hit its stride.
Exactly. They landed deals with companies like Commodore and Radio Shack.
Wow, okay.
Licensing their BASIC interpreter for this new wave of personal computers.
Right, so they're really getting their software out there.
They're spreading your wings.
Expanding their reach.
Exactly.
I love it.
And they didn't stop there. They kept developing new and innovative products.
Like what?
Programming tools, even an early operating system.
Wow.
Gates' vision of a computer in every home.
Yeah?
It was slowly becoming a reality.
That's so cool.
Oh, I know, right?
And it's almost like their journey mirrors the evolution of the personal computer itself.
Totally.
Starting with this simple interpreter for a really niche machine, and now they're creating software that's going to power millions of computers all over the world.
It's amazing how they were able to adapt, anticipate these changes, and capitalize on them.
Yeah, and Gates's role is evolving too.
Oh, yeah.
He's not just a brilliant programmer anymore.
Okay.
He's becoming a CEO.
Yeah, a visionary leader.
Inspiring his team and guiding the company towards these ambitious goals.
It's a good reminder that success doesn't always follow a straight line.
Right.
It's about adapting, learning from your mistakes, and having the courage to seize opportunities.
Even when things are uncertain.
Even when you don't know what's going to happen.
It's really inspiring.
And it's fascinating how Gates's early love for puzzles and systems really laid the groundwork for all of this.
Right. And it makes you wonder, what seemingly insignificant interests or skills you might have that could turn into something extraordinary.
Exactly. It's all about the right environment.
Yeah, it's a good question for all of us to think about.
It is.
Bill Gates' story is not just about tech success. It's about the power of curiosity, resilience, and that belief.
That belief in yourself.
That you can shape the future.
That you can make a difference.
Absolutely. And, imagine if he had stayed at Harvard.
Right.
Never pursued Microsoft.
What would the world look like today?
I know. It's crazy to think about.
It really highlights how individual choices can shape history.
Yeah.
Even a bit of luck and timing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been a wild ride.
It has been an incredible journey exploring his life and the rise of Microsoft.
It really has.
And don't forget to subscribe to Revise and Resubmit on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for more captivating deep dives like this one. And if you're enjoying the show and want to support us in creating more insightful content, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Every contribution helps us continue this journey of exploration and discovery. Until next time, keep those minds curious, keep questioning, and keep revising and resubmitting.
I was just a skinny kid hiking through the rain, typing dreams in my head, walking miles of pain, with a backpack full of stories, a mind that wouldn't rest, lines of code and mountain trails, I love them both the best. Take me home to my mainframe, through the wires, through the rain, where the screen glows, algorithms flow. Take me home, take me home. We were 5 kids, wild and free, hiking side by side, living off of cheap old spam, chasing every tide. But deep inside my wandering soul, the circus lit a spark. In the cold I found my fire, coding in the dark. Take me home to my mainframe, through the wires, through the rain, where the screen glows, algorithms flow. Take me home, take me home. You were 5 kids, wild and free, hiking side by side, living off of cheap old spam, chasing every tide. But deep inside my wandering soul, the circus lit a spark. In the cold I found my fire, coding in the dark. Years went by, I took my dream, turned it into gold. Built a world of ones and zeros, just like I had told. Still I hear those mountain winds calling back to me, to the boy who wrote his future under old pine trees. Take me home to my mainframe, through the wires, through the rain, where the screen glows, algorithms flow. Take me home, take me home.